Hello folks, welcome to Centre Ice UK. I'm your host Raymond and thanks for joining us on the CI UK podcast. We're now into the month of December, very busy time for everyone including all 10 clubs in the Rapid Solicitors Elite Ice Hockey League. 3 pods in and I'm pleased to see the process is starting to fall into a sort of routine and will hopefully continue to improve. A big thanks to you all who listen in and also to the guests that have joined me today along with their respective clubs. The corporations of the clubs I've been in touch with have been absolutely fantastic, so just another quick thanks to you all for being so generous with your time talking to me. As always, if you want to let me know what you think of the podcast, any suggestions or maybe you'd like to contribute, then you can email me comments@centreiceuk.com. Remember, you can like us on Facebook, that's facebook.com/CenterIceUK, and on Twitter as well, you can follow us there @CenterIceUK. It's a busy show, so without further delay, let's drop the puck at centre ice and start the first period. The results of the past week before we look ahead, starting off with Friday night. The Coventry Blaze went on a 3-day road trip to Scotland. It was anything but bonny as the Stars slammed the door shut and ran out 3-0 winners. Saturday night, Sheffield Steelers took a relatively short trip to Hull for their final Challenge Cup match and got a morale-boosting 2-1 win there. Braehead Clan hosted the Edinburgh Capitals. It was a seesaw match that the visitors east of the M8 eventually won by 5-4 in overtime. The Blaze got their road trip back on track with a 4-2 win away to the Fife Flyers. Then to round off the night, the match live on Premier Sports at the Big Blue Tent in Cardiff, and it was the Devils that ran out 5-0 winners over the Nottingham Panthers. Big result there in front of the TV cameras for the Devils. On to Sunday's results. Reverse of the previous night's fixture, the Nottingham Panthers got quick payback over the Cardiff Devils at the NIC, winning by 3-2. Sheffield Steelers also won by that scoreline, hosting the Fife Flyers to clinch their second 4-point weekend of the season. The Capitals won exactly the same manner as they did the night before, this time overcoming the Coventry Blaze 5-4 in overtime at Murrayfield Ice Rink. Down at Hull, and the Stingrays picked up their first shootout win in 10 to clinch a 4-3 victory over the Braehead Clan. And finally, the top of the table clash at Dundee Ice Arena, and it was the Belfast Giants who took a huge 2 points with an impressive 4-1 win. Now on to fixtures for this week. Tuesday night, the Nottingham Panthers picked up a huge 8-3 win at home to the Belfast Giants. That brings an end to 8 straight road games for the Belfast Giants, who tallied an impressive 12 points from 16. Friday night, the Braehead Clan will host the Nottingham Panthers. That's the only game Friday. On to Saturday, Belfast mark their homecoming at the Odyssey to go up against the Edinburgh Capitals. Hull Stingrays go up north to visit the Fife Flyers, and the game live on Premier Sports is from Braehead Arena, and it's the Braehead Clan against the Cardiff Devils. On to Sunday, Hull remain in Scotland to round off their weekend against the Edinburgh Capitals. Fife travel down to Coventry, taking on the Blaze, and finally Cardiff return home and play the Dundee Stars. That's time for the buzzer now in the first period. Let's get on to the second. It's time to speak to my first guest. I have a chat with David Sims about the weekend just passed for the Sheffield Steelers, and we also talk about a couple of our topics. David, welcome to Centre Ice UK. Thanks for joining me today.
My pleasure.
Just a quick look to the weekend just passed. The Steelers getting the 4 points for the weekend, starting off with a 2-1 Challenge Cup victory over Hull. Now that result didn't really affect the Challenge Cup standings, but it's always important to get a win anyway, just to build some confidence and momentum if nothing else.
Oh, absolutely, especially with the situation I think Sheffield have found themselves in this season where, ironically, this weekend was only the second weekend of the year where they'd registered back-to-back wins on Saturday and Sunday. So whilst the competition was perhaps not the fiercest in the league, it was a very important weekend that Sheffield just registered 4 points, 2 of them in the cup, 2 of them in the league. But no, good game in Hull as well. Hull played very well. They're a very fast team, probably one of the faster teams I've seen this season, and you can see why they have picked up points recently. But we were very happy and very relieved to come away from Hull with the 2 points.
And of course, it'd be rude not to mention Jeff Legui hitting that 500-point milestone on the Saturday night. Just how key a figure has he been to the club since he joined 6 years ago?
Oh, he's been immense for the club. I think when this skinny little lad walked into our team all that time ago, none of us realised he'd spend the next 6 or 7 years here. He'd become a legend here, and he'd become one of the immortals alongside the Shudras and the Priestleys of this world, guys that are decorated up in the rafters. And I'm sure Jeff's shirt will hang there once he has retired. He's just so consistent. If you look at his point output over that period of time, it's consistent. He scored with different partners. He scored on championship teams. He scored on teams that have finished mid-table. He scored clutch goals. He doesn't just score goals against the bottom place team. He's got winners against the Giants, winners against the Panthers, winners against Coventry in Coventry. He's still the same skinny little figure. He's got a body of a 14-year-old boy, but he's got the heart of a lion, and he's got immense ability. And of course, the biggest thing he's got is that quick release, great timing, and there is no better player in the Elite League on the one-timer on the power play than Jeff Legui, and that's where he's got a lot of his points.
Now, I know there will be many to choose from, but could you pick out maybe a few particular Jeff Legui moments today that have stood out for you?
Well, I can always remember the goal he scored when we were live on Sky. And Sheffield got absolutely battered by, ironically, a Doug Christensen Giants team. And somehow we kept it to 1-0 down. And Ashley Tate scored with a couple of minutes left to send it into what looked like to be overtime. And I remember doing the live commentary thinking, "Fuck, we're gonna sneak a point at home here." And then all of a sudden, in the dying seconds, Legui picks a pass up in his backside. He dipsy doodles over the blue line. He goes 1-on-1 with Stephen Murphy, and Murph's a great goalie, but Murph's still looking for it. And it was one of the great Legui moments, and he scored many of them. I think the partnership he had with Rod Sarich on the power play for so many years was crucial to our success. They played the back end on the power play well, and Sarich had got such a great fake and feed, and Legui always just found the time and space to hit that one timer. Every team in the league knows it's coming. Every team in the league knows that when Legui's on the power play, it's going to come to him for the one timer. But the great thing with Legui is, even though you know it's coming, you can't stop it happening.
And of course, Jeff getting that minute's tribute from the fans, another special moment in the building.
Yeah, that's the first time we've done that in Sheffield. I know it's been done in football grounds around the world, and it's been done in different hockey rinks. In fact, it was done in Hull the night before because Tendler had played his 200th game for Hull, and the Hull fans cheered him at the 27th minute mark. And it worked well in Hull for Tendler, great servant to his club. So it was all a bit different. We didn't know whether it was going to work. We tweeted it, we Facebooked it, we emailed it out to everybody. We put it on the website up on our big scoreboard so everybody knew, and bang, as soon as 9:59 hit the clock and we were into the 11th minute, everybody just rose. It was a fantastic little thing to witness, and I know, speaking with Jeff afterwards, he was thrilled with it.
Now on to the match itself. Another close one in terms of the scoreline, but the Steelers came out 3-2 against Fife, and as you've already mentioned, a 4-point weekend. Just how good everybody was feeling bagging those 4 points.
Well, you know what? The Sheffield Steelers have become known as the most religious club in the Elite League because on a Sunday, most of our players didn't turn up to play. They went to church instead. And it was good to drag them from the pulpit and drag them into the ice because they played very well on Sunday. It wasn't a classic. It wasn't a cracker. And there's a lot of nervousness in Sheffield. There's a lot of pressure playing in Sheffield. It is the highest pressurised team to play for in the league. And we put a lot of pressure on the players and on the coach. Fans do as well. So it was just to grab those points. We had a chance to wrap it up. We were 3-1 up, had a couple of chances to go 4-1 up, didn't take it. that little rat Danny Stewart goes and scores 3-2. And because of our Sunday record, I think we all had the jitters a little bit, and we were all a little nervous towards the end. Frank Doyle made some great stops for us, but we ended up holding just five shots in the third period. We were defensively sound, and hopefully now it's something we can build on. Though, in saying that, we go 10 days now without a game. We don't play next weekend, which is something very unusual in our league. So we don't play until we play the Edinburgh Capitals, who right now, of course, are playing more like the Washington Capitals, doing very well, moved off the bottom of the league. So that'll be a tough game next Wednesday.
That's what I was just about to touch on. You've got that 10-day gap, but the plus side of that is some of your players will get a chance to maybe recuperate. How is that injury situation looking? Might any bodies be back in time for next week?
Well, it's awkward because the injuries we've got are injuries that don't have any specific time spans on them. You know, if you do your groin, you know it's 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever it is. But the two injuries we're most concerned about are two concussions. Dustin Cohn, who's in his second concussion of the year, so we have to be very careful with him. And our best player, Robert Dowd, who has been our best player all year, took a nasty one in Nottingham. The Panthers player gets suspended for 2 games. But the injury that he causes and to Robert Dowd, he's missed at least 5 games and possibly might miss even more. So we just have to take those day by day. And if they feel better and if they can ride the bike and if they're not sick and if they don't show any of the signs after post-concussion, then they'll be back in the lineup. But they could be back tomorrow. They could be back, Christmas Day. We just have to take that time by time. The 10-day break, I think, will allow a lot of the injuries that people don't know about to heal. Guys who are playing with broken toes at the moment. One of the guys playing with a fractured wrist. One guy who's playing with pulled groin. One guy who's playing with a hip flexor. You know, we've got lots of guys that are injured but are playing, and I think it'll help those guys perhaps a little bit more than it'll help Cohn and Dowd.
Now onto that match with the Capitals itself. As you already said, the Capitals, they've took 5 wins from the last 7. What do you think's key for the Steelers so they avoid being the latest scalp claimed by them?
Get on the goalie. Get on the goalie and get on the goalie early. Because if you give teams like Edinburgh, Dundee, those teams, if you give them a sniff, if their goalie can hold them in a game long enough, everybody gets nervous. And, of course, they've got those players that can score. Offensively, the Caps, the Stars, might be more gifted than maybe the Giants, the Steelers. They're perhaps not good 1 to 18 and don't have the depth, but they have that offensive talent. Like if you look at Sheffield, the offensive talent we have is Le Guy. After that, everybody else has to work really hard for their goals. Le Guy is our gifted goal scorer. Sirianni, maybe, who's just come in. But after that, everybody has to grab for their goals. So you've got to score early on those teams and put them to bed early. And that means jumping all over him, getting right in Horowski's face, getting hooks at him right off the bat, and not taking them lightly. And I think this year, perhaps, we call them lucky. We battered them 11-1 up in Edinburgh when they weren't playing well. But then certainly since then, Belfast, Nottingham, Braid, Coventry, they've all been beaten up there. And Sheffield's got a history of being beaten in Murrayfield. And I think teams do go up there, and it's such a dull atmosphere. It's such a big building with only 18 people watching you. You kind of fall down to thinking, this is going to be a nothing game. And, of course, the Caps come out and they hit you with everything they've got. They've got some stunning players, and bang, all of a sudden you can find yourself chasing a game, and that's what you've got to make sure you don't do against them.
Now, the big signing news of last week was Robert Farmer rejoining the Panthers after that brief spell in the ECHL. Now, Ben O'Connor aside, that's been a number of Brits now lately returning to the UK after relatively short stints abroad. Can you put your finger on as to why that's maybe been the case?
Well, the simple answer is they're not good enough. That's the simple answer. With the exception of Robert Dowd, they're not good enough to play in Europe. Dowd's good enough to play in Europe. That's why he played in the best league that any of the Brits that have left this country have ever gone to. Ben O'Connor is a different bird. Ben O'Connor hasn't got a home. Ben is a gypsy, and I think that has probably helped him. He was born in Sheffield, but his father was from, obviously played up in Durham. He then played the juniors in Sheffield, but then he went as a youngster, as a real 14-year-old, he went to America. He went and played there. Then he went to France. Then he came back and played in Coventry, played in Edinburgh. He's played in a different city. If you asked Ben O'Connor where his home was, he couldn't give you a name of a town because he's always lived in a different city. And I think that is one of the things with Benny, that Benny is prepared now to sit it out 3 years, put up with the inconveniences of living in Kazakhstan for the great financial rewards and the much better player he has become. I think the other players, Farmer, you look at Peacock as well, the lad Richardson, who I think is a super player in Cardiff, they have the comfort blanket of knowing that there's a job waiting for them in England. And unfortunately, because our development nationwide isn't as good as we'd like to think it is, our guys don't rank well against a lot of the same age players in North America and Europe. Speak to Shay Guthrie and to ask him how the 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds and 16-year-olds train in Troja in Sweden, where my best mate is coaching right now, Paul Thompson. And he'll tell you it's night and day different. And then, of course, when you go and try the East Coast League, Matthew Myers, who was a stud in our league, he couldn't get a game. He bounced around team to team to team. And Robert Farmer as well. A lot of the problem is that the British lads here, and you won't find a more patriotic pro-British bloke than me, but the British lads here, they never have to fight to get onto a team. There's always a job waiting for them. Where the guys in the East Coast League, the Central League, the Swedish League, they got to fight and they got to kick their brother and hold him down before they can get into a position. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. And Farms went away, and I give Robert all the credit in the world for going and trying it, because every year that lad tries it. He tried Kazakhstan, he's tried the States before, he's tried Canada, he's tried everything. He's trying to develop himself and better himself. But the reality is that at his age, at that level, you're fighting for a position on a team. And unfortunately, with the exception of Dowd, I don't think there's one here that will do that. Look at Peacock. Peacock's a stud in our league. He goes to Denmark. He don't score a point.
Well, even if you cast your eyes back maybe 5-10 years ago, precious few Brits were trying things abroad. So is that maybe at least a sign of some progress?
Oh, absolutely. No, and you have to give them credit for giving the ball a kick. You really do have to give them credit for that. Though I would point out to you that, the person who played at the highest level was David Longstaff, who played in Djurgården, who played actually in the Elite Serien for one of the biggest teams in the world. And again, David will tell you the biggest regret in his life, he never went back for a second year because, he did so well in his first year. Djurgården wanted him back, and he didn't go back. He was a little homesick. And, we expect these Canadians to fly halfway around the world and come and play in some obscure places. But our guys have always got the comfort blanket of knowing that there's a job waiting for them. And I think until that comfort blanket is removed, they won't ever develop in Europe. And I think now with Farmer coming back, with Peacock coming back, with Dowd not staying for a second year, I think now a lot of these European teams will say, hold on a second, what's the point of taking a Brit? He'll go there for 6 weeks, he'll come home when things aren't working out for him. So I genuinely think that might well be the case. Because very few last year, you mentioned Ben O'Connor, he's a one-off. And really, is Ben O'Connor what you and I would call British, because there's Benny who, other than playing a few years junior in Sheffield, he played his year in Coventry, his year in Edinburgh. But he's played in America, he's played in Canada, he's played in France, he's played all over the place. He actually, isn't what you and I would call a Brit. He ain't been brought up in Glasgow or Birmingham. He's been brought up in North America and Europe.
Right, just the last topic now before we finish up. You'll be in Hull next Tuesday night for another one of your evening whiff events. For those that have never been to one yet, could you give folk an idea of what it's all about?
It's educational. I educate people who think they know better than me, and by the end of the night they realise that they don't. And basically, it's a bit like that. It's a bit of tongue-in-cheek. I tell stories. I got 32 years of history in this sport, and I tell a lot of stories, some funny, some sad, some good, some bad. But what we also do, we debate. So the one thing you can rest assured on one of my evening withs, I will be brilliant. But whether the night is a good night will depend on the audience. If the audience respond, if the audience ask questions, if the audience want to debate, then that's when the nights go really well, because I can explain a lot of the things that if you go on some of these stupid forums and you read some of the idiotic comments that are on there, we answer those idiotic comments. We put them to bed. It's face to face, and it gets confrontational. I confront people. I throw a suggestion out there. People will debate it with me. We argue the toss with it, and I explain why I'm right and they're wrong. And then intermingled with that, we throw some good stories in there as well. So the very first time I went to Hull, it was only a couple of weeks after the conference system had just been up and running. And the first question I asked was, how many people in this room are in favour of the conference? And I think about a dozen people put their hand up. And the last question I asked after we debated it for probably 3 hours, I said, how many people are in favour of the conference? And I think 85 to 90% of the room put their hands up, because they didn't understand it. So we'll explain things in verbatim terms and in layman terms to people. So, later on, I'm up in Glasgow. I'm doing one in Braehead, one in Belfast, just done one in Peterborough. They're good nights. And, they raise some money for the clubs as well, which is what it's there for. We're trying to raise some money for the Hull Stingrays on Tuesday, raise some money for the Braehead Clan when I'm up there after Christmas. And if we can do that, pretty good. We had 300 people in Cardiff paying a tenner a piece. So, the people down in Cardiff made 3,000 quid out of one of those nights. So if it's organised well by the clubs, it can make the club some money, and I guarantee you it's a good night.
Well, I'll certainly be there for when you make the trip up to Glasgow. I look forward to it.
I look forward to educating you.
I look forward to be educated.
Good man.
Well, David, thanks very much for your time talking to me today, and we'll talk again soon, hopefully.
Yeah, no worries at all, fella.
Big thanks to David Sims for there chatting to me. Keep an eye out for any future Evening With events at a club near you. I can assure you it's a very entertaining and worthwhile night, so keep up to date there. Now on to the latest disciplinary news from the EIHL. Only the one bit of news to update you on. Braehead Clan defenceman Chris Frank received a match ban for a repeated stick offence. Frank was originally assessed a 2-minute minor for high sticks in Sunday's match against the Hull Stingrays, which was then upgraded to a 5+ game for cross-checking after review. So that means Chris Frank will not play this Friday night against the Nottingham Panthers. And that marks the end of the second period. Now let's go to the final session. Welcome to the third and final period. Let's check up on the latest transactions in the league. Nottingham Panthers released 2. Bob Wren and Tuka Maleka are the ones departing. Stingrays defenceman Matt Suderman also leaves. A bit of a bizarre one here, as he cites officiating, abuse on social media and other personal issues as reasons for his departure. He was quoted saying he would probably retire altogether, but has since signed for the Brampton Beast in the Central Hockey League. Former Hull player Pavel Gormiuk has been brought back to the club to temporarily fill the gap there. That's it for transactions, and now it's time we speak to my other guest. I have a chat with Scott Neal from the Edinburgh Capitals. Apologies in advance for the audio quality. Scott was actually commuting down south when I was speaking to him, but we have cleaned it up as best as possible. Just a quick reflection first on the weekend just past there. 2 overtime victories for you, starting off with a 5-4 win over the Braehead Clan. How pleased are you with that come from behind road victory?
I think we're absolutely delighted, with the way things have went over the last 2 or 3 weeks. We went through a period there. I don't think we were playing particularly well, but we weren't really getting much luck either. And, when you've got these 2 factors, it's tough to get some points on the board. Just recently, I think we've upped our game, and, we're getting the rub of the puck sometimes too. And I think, we definitely rode our luck in Braehead a bit, but, you've got to be able to do that to win in these rings.
A couple of goals from that Braehead game came from unforced errors by the Clan, though it still requires some decisive reactions and confidence to take advantage of those chances, so it must be you're good, the team doing that.
Yeah, you have to take your chances when they come. And, to be fair, there was a number of games early on in the season. We were doing the same thing. We were coughing up too many pucks in the neutral zone and even in our zone, and we were getting punished for it. So it's good to be able to, get some balance on that and get some points on the board when we get our chance.
And then on to Sunday, at home to the Blaze, it was another nail-biter going into overtime again. Was there any nervous moments there when they tied it up, or were you confident the guys would see the game out?
I mean, there are always nervous moments. You know, Coventry are good sides. You know, any team could have probably won that game by then. But it's just nice for your home fans and for the team confidence, you know, to continue to, you know, get a little run at home wins. You know, it helps in so many ways. Gets everyone a little bit more positive around the club and around the ice rink. And, you know, and the fan base. And it's good to be winning these 3 games instead of losing them.
And that makes it 5 wins in 7 games for you now. You'll be hoping to carry that form on into the coming weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, especially if we can keep winning at home. You know, if we can keep doing that, you know, we'll gain momentum, we'll gain confidence. You know, we do have a very tough game in Belfast. You know, there are no illusions about, you know, how tough it's going to be. But, you know, we go over there, try and play our system. You know, hope they get something out of the game. But certainly looking to come back home and, you know, take another point, a couple of points off one of our conference teams.
And last topic before you let you go, Scott. One of the big challenges for all the clubs in the leagues is how to get more people through the doors each week, and the Caps have done a couple of initiatives via the Groupon deals. Could you tell us a bit more about that and how successful it's been?
It has been successful in getting numbers in the building. You know, without a doubt, from a one-off sort of game point of view, you know, and despite the many other kind of promotions that we've tried, it seems to be, you know, the most successful avenue for Edinburgh anyway, and get people in the building. What we would like, you know, because especially the last game, it was a, you know, great game. The guys played really well. You know, we're really looking to try and get you know, a higher retention rate of these people coming back. You know, so you know that's another marketing initiative. You know, is encouraging these people to come back to the game and support the club more often. You know, and get really behind the team that, you know, we are playing well at home, where the guys are doing their job on the ice. We've had 2 or 3 really good, you know, exciting home games, and you know they really deserve more fans to be watching them. So we've just got to continue with, you know, various projects like this to get more people interested in the sport, and you know, hopefully more people coming back more often.
That's just what I was about to touch on there. When you get those numbers through the door, what is the biggest challenge in getting to come back again on a more regular basis?
I think, you know, from our point of view, our individual's point of view, there's a number of things. You know, there's the product on the ice, there's the facility, there's, you know, value for money. You know, there's a lot of different factors that people will take into account when, you know, they're making a judgment on what their family is going to spend their money on, or what they're going to spend their money on. Especially on the run-up to Christmas, it's always been, I think, a difficult period for us. You know, we've always noticed probably a decline on the run-up to Christmas crowds, but there's so many other things, you know, I think, especially in Edinburgh, you know, there's a lot of competition for that leisure pound. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on. But, you know, I think we've got to try and find a happy medium and make sure we're providing, you know, the value for money that I think, you know, a lot of people, you know, are really judging nowadays and what they do and where they go.
Do you think the new recent TV deal will boost the league profile and, by extension, the crowds?
I think that's you know, going to be a difficult one to determine in the short term. You know, I think it will be a longer term sort of, you know, solution to that, or it'll take a while for, you know, anyone to really be able to truly understand how that trend's going. You know, I think, you know, so far I've watched both shows. I think they've been relatively well done. You know, you know, the games have been, especially the first one, you know, was very good. Probably an unexpected, you know, one-sided game by the end of the last one, but, you know, the production's good, and I think having a live game is more exciting than watching just the highlights program every week. So, you know, hopefully that will, you know, get out into bigger medium for, more people to become interested in the game. But as I say, I think, that's more, it's going to be a longer term thing before we see any real trend and, fan bases being, more interested in the sport through Premier.
Well, Scott, thanks very much for speaking to me, and best of luck this weekend.
Okay, thanks very much for having me on. Thank you.
Many thanks to Scott Neal there, and that about does it for this week. You can email me your thoughts on the podcast and comments at Centre Ice UK. Remember, you can like us on Facebook, facebook.com/Centre Ice UK, and Twitter at Centre Ice UK. Many thanks again to my guests for this edition, and a big thanks to you all once more for listening. Wherever you get your hockey fix this weekend, enjoy it. See you next week.